morning and afternoon to all of you who have joined us today. And we are here again with another insightful workshop. We have John with us today, and it's our second workshop together. The earlier workshop we conducted with John was really exciting. It was on designing for Web 3.0. You can check that in the app itself. And for today as well, he has picked up an interesting and a fairly new topic which everyone is talking about. And we wanted to help you also learn more about it. It's designing for spatial user interfaces. John is a senior product designer at Citibank. He has always focused on product strategy, design management, UXR, UI, and interaction design. He has been in the industry for 5+ years. He also mentors and now runs cohorts for aspiring product designers to help them get started and level up in the design career journey. A very warm welcome to
Thank you.
the workshop, John. The stage is all
Yeah,
yours.
yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here again. And ProApp is doing such a great work in design education. So I'm always here, excited to share my learnings with you all. Let me share my screen. This is desktop. Yeah, today the topic is designing for spatial interfaces, spatial experiences, and everything, right? And last time, I don't know if you were here, last time we spoke a little bit about Web3 metaverse, where we spoke a little bit about the AR, VR, and the vision that Meta had pushed. And this year, Apple also has pushed that vision of kind of having a digital interconnected world. And we are going to focus a bit on the user experience and the UX side of it in this session today. They already made an introduction, but I can tell a little bit about myself and my journey. So I'm John Rodriguez. I'm currently working at Citibank. I work mostly on the financial product, apart outside work, and previously in the university and other companies I worked for. I worked in one virtual reality in healthcare company, which kind of opened up a lot of mind for me in terms of how a process of designing a virtual reality product is. And especially that company was a very design focused. So I was very much involved in the research, prototyping, and development process, which opened up a lot of doors for me. And I did my master's thesis. I did my master's in user experience and interaction design from Jefferson, where my thesis project was in immersive learning for healthcare education, especially for occupational therapy students. So that opened up the door for me in the space of virtual reality, and I explored a lot AR, VR, and everything. Apart from that, these are what I'm going to show is all my explorations, personal findings, and experiments, and everything, and a project that I had worked. I just didn't wanted to give information here and just but also share projects and my experiments so that you all can learn from it. Apart from that, recently I've been working on building a product design school to help designers to level up in their profession. That's been my side hustle. And recently I've been teaching a few designers, and some of my students are here. So I'm excited to see them here also. And I'm excited to see you all also. I believe if you have come last time and you're coming here again to this session, if you're familiar with my face, so welcome. And if you're new, welcome too. Yeah, I've been 5 to 7 years being an engineer, then became an industrial designer, then got into user experience, now focusing on the design management and strategy. And on the side, I keep doing some interaction design work just to ignite my curiosity and keep things interesting in the process of learning design. So that's a little bit of my background. So I want to cover today, we'll keep it very casual, very conversational. At the end, we'll have Q&A also. I might be just switching tabs and going to browser and showing you all. So let's keep it very casual, and then feel free to ask any question. No question is big question or small question. Feel free to ask. So we're going to talk about what XR. You might have heard this word XR now. People say AR, VR. But now people are using word extended reality because Apple is kind of going in positioning a product into XR product because it encompasses a lot of this AR, VR, MR things and everything. We'll go into that. I'll show you all one of the project I worked. It was a 1-year-long project, but I'm going to keep it very short and simple and show it to you all. And we'll speak about devices and various devices I have used which you can use to get started and everything. And we'll speak about the XR design principles, and this could be an entire topic on its own, but I'll touch base on a few important principles that our designers need to keep in mind. So those are the main topic, and also we are covering some resource. I do have a like a resource document. I can share it in the chat, or I can send it through the ProApp team. The document where I have curated some of the documentation by Apple and Meta and everything, and then we'll speak about skills and how you can, if you are interested to go into the space, how you can still continue working on your design skills and eventually migrate when this products are the opportunity you get to work in this space. And then as we learn, we're gonna like it's up to you to identify some of the skills that you need to improve and learn. I this time I don't have a dedicated slide to show, okay, these are the XYZ skills to learn, but I want you all to like interpret it based on like what projects I'm showing. Like, okay, he's showing like research in VR, he's showing in UI. So how can I build the skills? But you can have, if you have any specific question, you can ask that about the role. And at the end, we can have a Q&A. We'll probably have 30 minutes for the Q&A at the end. So let's get started. So have you all heard of this word called extended reality? So if you want to uh, if you know about it, so it's a yes, or you want to learn. Yeah. So Claudia has heard about extended reality. Anyone else what heard of extended reality? So if not, I'm here to explain you all. And this is nothing but a umbrella term in the sense like it consists of everything. Augmented reality. You might have seen Pokemon Go, or the what do you say, the AR filters on your Instagram and everything. And mixed, it's also there. It also includes mixed reality. We'll learn what all everything is, and then there's a virtual reality, which my project was. So you're gonna see that. So when somebody says extended reality, it's a combination of everything, because nowadays our devices are able to switch between mixed reality versus virtual reality. So as I'll show you all some concepts and then it will make more clear. But if somebody tells you what's a extended reality, it's a umbrella term or combination of augmented reality, mixed reality, and virtual reality. I'm sure you'll have heard of this word augmented reality, mixed reality, and everything. If not, I have certain illustrations where this is put together by Meta to explain the what do you say, different types of realities. So if you can see, this is the real world. This is the real world you are seeing, and then there is mixed realities where a digital asset is projected on a physical world, and then this virtual reality, which is complete immersion. There's no physical world at all. It's completely immersed, and there's nothing like one use case is better than the other. It comes down to like what you are trying to solve or an experience you're trying to create. Sometimes we need complete immersion. There once I experienced a app where they created a blind person's experience and how they hear the sound. So that time you need like complete blackout and immersion. So virtual reality makes sense. And then this mixed reality, which you will have seen the Apple's Vision Pro launch and everything. And then this augmented reality, which is again displaying the digital world, digital assets in the real world to create some sort of an experience. So it's an integration of both digital and the real world. And the way we consume augmented reality is through our phone. And AR is going to be most likely adopted faster compared to VR and mixed reality, because everybody has a phone now and people are upgrading to higher level phone, higher level phones and everything. There are some examples, and I'm going to show through some of my experiments and things I have put together. You can see my browser too, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So here you can see there's a Arrow app I use. It's another prototyping tool by Adobe, where I was able to bring this called anchoring points. So in AR, there's always a point you can anchor your digital objects to. And I was able to bring some, what do you say, the digital assets into it and then add behaviors to it. So that's an augmented reality where I'm using my phone to view a digital asset and also interact with it. So whenever I used to tap on the character, the character would animate. This opens up a lot of doors for e-commerce, experience, or like educational learning experience and everything. There's another experiment I can show you all for augmented reality. It's not an experiment, but this is when I went to the Apple campus in Cupertino. So they have this campus there, and they have their building, and they give you an iPad where you can walk around and you can see the building airflow, the structure, and you can open up the buildings and see. So we are like pushing the limits of the reality and learning something here, right? So Apple integrated this in their campus to bring people together. This also is a big opportunity for like businesses who have like offline presence to create like experiences to help customers learn or people to come learn about it. So here you can see the digital assets are projected on that physical landscape, and we are able to see how the air flows, how is it designed, why is it designed that way, and everything. So these are like real world integration. It's not just a theoretical thing now. People are already integrating this in our everyday life. And we are using it every day, maybe not all the time, but to a certain extent, like Google Maps, Apple Maps, they have AR integration now. So when I went to New York, the streets are very, what do you say, smaller, right? And I always find it difficult to navigate. That's a problem the user has. But here in the Apple Maps, here you can see it has the digital arrows projected in the real world, just helping me as a user to navigate streets like New York very effectively. And the thing is, it also gives me a warning too, right? If I'm only looking at the phone and not looking at the street, it's very dangerous when people can come. So it gives me a warning also. Don't look for phone for longer now, like, maybe after a while. So AR is like becoming part of our products, like everyday products. Even if you have Google Maps, even if you after this session you can go check it out. There is a AR integration where you can use to navigate the streets. I'm not sure it's globally launched, but here in the US there is, but probably it should be there. Check your Google Maps. So AR is like, already becoming integral part of our life. It need not to be a revolutionary experience to change our life or anything. It could be a very small experience that solves the user's problem, and has user experience designer, that's something that we deeply care about. So these are some experiments and exploration I show you all. Instead of telling you all the definition, I thought maybe let me show you all the experiments and help you all understand the concepts better. So here you can see this is a HoloLens. It's a device created by Microsoft. It's like a huge computer kind of a thing on your head. So I used that in my university, and it's very expensive. It's like $3,000, but that's for in the university. I was able to use it. So I use this to bring like the digital asset in the real world. And here I have my hand motion too, right? So I can able to click through it in the air and view and understand the body parts and everything. And this is very helpful in healthcare education. People now use charts and stuff, but this is very immersive. And these are like the virtual mixed reality user interfaces that floats in the air and you can interact. So you will be still applying your design skills, your design principle skills in this user interfaces, but now there's another dimension of it, like depth to it, and there's like a feedback and everything, because when we touch the screen we have a tactical feedback, right? But when we touch a screen in the air, there's no tactical feedback, so you have to use sound to compensate for that, or else people feel it's very unnatural. So there's another AR experiment I have done, I can show. So this was a prototyping tool, and now probably they don't exist, but I was into this, 5 years back. And then I took a pause from all this AR, VR, unless Apple launched their thing. That's why I got excited back. I use that to like visualize and create concepts how healthcare educators can use to visualize the complex body structures and everything. And I actually used this video to tweet to one of the company. I got my internship through that. They hired me to create prototypes, and I end up also creating my own project there, which I'm going to show it to you all. So after that, this is another exciting project we had done. just an experiment. However, again, we didn't design any of those digital assets, but I was in the design school, but we were thinking, how can we interior designers can use to like stage things, right? Interior designer stage stuff, and it's a very expensive. I mean, you can't replace the real world experience, but you can always like, have some kind of an intermediate solution. So we were exploring how we can import furnitures in the real world. And here you can see they're like anchored to a position. Even if you move, they're still going to be there. The couch, digital couch is still going to be there, which is really exciting. So I used this kind of mixed reality experience to create something useful for the interior designers. So this was one of the concept, and you can see how well it adapts to the real world. So that is one of the mixed reality experiences. So again, let's go back to another experiment. This is the last experiment I'll show for this one. So again, there I didn't have a headset or anything, but I wanted to illustrate a concept. As a designer, your biggest power is ability to visualize and help people bring their ideas to life. So I use After Effects to create this kind of indicator to help students navigate on the campus. This was just an experiment done with After Effects. On after there's in After Effects, there's an option for tracking the surface and everything. So this is an experiment I had done. So okay, so let's get into another slide. So I'm going to show you a project which has an end to end. Those were like just experiments, right? And it's very essential that you experiment and try things out. There's no defined guidelines to it. I mean, I'll share your documentation and everything, but it's an opportunity to experiment more rather than thinking what's the right way of doing it. And then there's an immersive learning project I worked on. So this was an end-to-end project from research, strategy, UI to interaction and everything, and XR prototyping. So whenever I say XR, it's the umbrella term for all AR, VR and stuff. So this project was a immersive learning platform for occupational therapy students, which is designed to help them build clinical reasoning skills. My question was like, how can we use VR to build them clinical reasoning skills, right? So one of the biggest challenge was like when you approach a design problem through a mindset of a solution, and VR is a solution, right? Then we don't focus on the problem of the users. So it's very essential that you do the user research to deeply understand what problem you're trying to solve. Just because it's functionally possible, that doesn't mean you have to do it. You got to deeply understand the problem space. And it's always okay later to experiment and do once you have context around the problem. So one of the problem we are trying to solve is they had to commit too much to the memory, which that resulted into a lot of fear and anxiety or unpreparedness when the occupational students went from the clinical setting to the real world setting. And then 80% of the users I mentioned interviewed, they said that they lacked hands-on training. So that was the problem I was trying to solve. And I think has even for a AR VR any project, right? You do start with research or your primary and your secondary research. So I had conducted user interviews to understand their pain points, their challenges, what they are trying to accomplish, and everything. So your same research process get applied to AR VR product. If somebody hires you as a researcher for XR technology, it's not anything new. It's similar to what you are currently doing now. I'm making an assumption that you all are aware of the user experience design process of research and everything. If not, just there are some insights here you can take away also. And then, yeah, the concepts exploration as a AR VR designer, you'll probably sketching a lot of concepts. I introduced like so many concepts, user flows, wireframes, and I used to visualize how would that look in the 3D space and everything. So it was very exciting to just concept things out and, sketch a lot of ideas you get when you are working on AR VR project. So this can be translated into so concepting, and then I'll show you all the storyboarding, but let me touch on this method. So there is this method called body storming. Heard of brainstorming, right? You think through your brain. Body storming is you create a scenario, a virtual, physical scenario. You act out that situation, because we were trying to create a virtual simulation of a patient transfer. So we acted out this in the real world, and this is called body storming. And we took that information and data to sometimes you can also do contextual inquiry, going to the real world. If you are working on some kind of a simulation training, how is that done in the real world, and then translated that into storyboarding to create an experience. So I've understood by doing that contextual research. Contextual research is nothing but going to that place where that experience exists and conducting some observations there of how people are interacting, what they are using, and what are the insights you're capturing, and all this. So there are like criteria you can set for contextual research. So all this I took and translated that into a storyboard, and also this helped me to map out the UI also, which UI needs to be there, why, and everything. See, as UX UI designers, we don't mindlessly design UI. We design UI to solve a problem, to be aligned with the user's journey. So that's where the storyboarding comes into picture. And even when I was working in that innovation company, they were doing a lot of storyboard to communicate with the developers. So storyboarding is a very helpful skill. And nowadays you have like Mid Journey. You could probably use Mid Journey to create those uh, art boards and everything. You just give a prompt. I took the storyboards and took into a 3D modeling software. And probably 3-4 years back, there wasn't a mature prototyping tool, so I had to hack my way through it. I think this was like Sketch. I forgot the name, but this tool was a 3D modeling tool. So I imported my storyboard to kind of use that in virtual reality to create that patient transfer experience. And then I also designed the UI in Sketch. Then Sketch was the thing to what do you say, to create that immersive experience, and kind of ask creating like quizzes in the virtual reality, so they are learning those skills. If they are doing it wrong, they can't go forward. So it's like you're designing a game. So this is a concept I've created. It's not necessarily developed. It was a 1 year long project, but the project goal was to identify the problem and design a solution that actually solves the problem. And then we created like we used this video and simulation to test the users and ask the questions about if it's solving the problem. Is it help them to build context around before going to the medical setting. So this was more better than just reading through books and paragraphs and stuff. So it was, my hypothesis was proved at the end. So I was able to create a prototypes. So I've learned that one thing from that project is prototyping in XR is very essential skill. And sometimes in a company, again, research gets ignored. Only like in mature companies, they do that. And sometimes it's like handled by a research team. As a product designer and stuff, you might not be really actively doing research. But a prototyping skill can be super helpful, because there you're helping a team to visualize the concept, right? So now in 2023, there are companies who are making incredible prototyping tools for designers, which wasn't true 3-4 years back when I was working. So there is one tool you can look into, which is called Basil, or Bezel or whatever. So it helps you create like this interactive prototypes, both mixed reality and virtual reality, which is really exciting because you can use teleportation to go from the real world to completely a digital experience. And if you have an Oculus, you can download this app and create from there. Also use your phone to create AR. So you can see they are switching between multiple universe, or like say it's like metaverses, right? Like they're in the real world now, go into the digital world, and they're going into the AR. So you can create all these experiments and explorations and prototypes using the tools like Bezel. And they are also like, people are experimenting with the Vision Pro UI and everything. So, and as a designer, this is your superpower, able to visualize, able to prototype, able to test, able to research, and you always have to explore, what do you say, leverage it. So that's one tool. And there's another tool called Shape XR. They were there for a long time, and now they are kind of getting more mature. with the collaboration. So it's like how Figma became a mainstream tool because of the collaboration during pandemic. So they are kind of focusing on that, how many people come and create experience. So XR is something to look into. And after that, we have Adobe Aero. I'll show you all one experiment, right? So if you're creating an AR experience, you can use Adobe Aero. I believe it's free, and you can create like augmented reality experience. And it's very interesting there because you can behavior on it, like if the user click on it, what happens. So that way you're creating a storyboard, an experience. Let's say you have a experience or a storyboard defined what that experience needs to be. These are tools that will enable to do that. So if you have any idea, just create a storyboard and come and prototype and put it out there, learn from it, do some research. So experiment a lot, and then there are tools like this that will help you to do incredible things, and there are like resources to learn that also on the same platforms. So those are the some of the prototyping tools, right? And now I'll dive deeper into more advanced tools. um, so yeah, your Figma is still relevant. Don't worry, your what you learned in Figma is still relevant because the user interfaces you design is still designed in Figma or any UI designs tool, and then it moved into the Unity or a 3D rendering tool. Figma is still relevant because Apple recently released their UI kit for the Vision Pro, right? So all the templates and everything are still in Figma. So you'll be designing everything here, but you still want to take it to a 3D environment and test it out because there's a scale, there is like the distance from the user and the screen. So all those things comes into picture. So and I would recommend you also, I usually in like a talks like this or design talks like career talk, I don't emphasize that okay, designers have to code. I mean, they have to learn like the foundation of it, but this is a space where you having that skill of a game engine like Unity combined with your design skills are very powerful. So it's very essential. You kind of learn this development tool also. Again, you are a designer, you don't have to be as extensively knowledgeable as an engineer, and learning 20 to 30% can be good enough also. And if you can able to create a prototype, it's more than a helpful skill. Again, the learning curve for all this is high. I can't sugarcoat it at all. It is high. It's a game development engine, but it's definitely worth learning. But if you are still want to stick to the research and prototyping and interaction, you can still stick with those existing tools. But if you want to level up from there, maybe uh, like this can help you get your foot in the industry because they know like Unity at least. So Unity is a game engine platform. I also want, okay, so let me go to Unity. So it's a game development engine, but then you can use this to create AR, VR, and everything. And Apple is also partnering with Unity now. So a lot of integration with the Unity is that is happening. And then you might be wondering, John, where can I learn all this, right? So I had taken this pathway for a couple of 3 years, 3 or 4 years back when I was working on that project. So there are different pathways here. So if you are like essentials, junior programmer, creative core, if you want to focus on the creative side, like sound design or the animations or the 3D modeling and everything, so you can take this path. And there's VR development. So I would recommend if you are something that you love or want to get into this is a good place to start with. There is another engine like that called Unreal Engine. But I don't want you all to feel overwhelmed with these tools, right? So just take this as Unity and Figma is just enough. Unreal Engine is another game development engine, but the thing is, a lot of the meta, right? Um, Meta's documentation integration, Apple's integration is happening mostly with the Unity. So I would recommend Unity. So, but don't get overwhelmed trying to try too many tools. Unity is an industry standard tool. But Unreal is another option you have if you're interested to look into that. It's a very powerful tool too, and they have like visual scripting, and also with Unity also you get visual scripting. Again, so if you don't want to code, They have visual scripting where you kind of usually create an experience. But that's something you can learn if you don't want to code. But if you are ready to code, like C Sharp is the programming language you can use to create. And you can once you learn this tool, you can use develop both for MetaQuest and then Apple Vision Pro. Apple has an integration now, their APIs and everything. So if you are someone wants to go into the Apple Vision Pro, I know this is less than ideal situation because it's hella expensive. It's expensive, but eventually, but this is a way you are an early adapter to it. The chances of the company you build, a product you build, getting acquired by a bigger company is very high here. So if that's like your strategy, um, you can learn like Xcode, Shift UI. Like a lot of the designers use Shift UI for developing UIs and interaction design. You can use that for creating VR Vision Pro experiences. They also have re reality compressor, where it's like a 3D modeling engine. I believe it's reality compressor, yeah. And then the Unity. So they are integrating with Unity. So like I said, like learning Unity is a good place to start. And then always apply your design visual skills to create interfaces and experiences and everything. Again, this is like advanced level, right? This is like you're on the level 99. You don't have to necessarily start from here. It can be overwhelming. Start with prototyping, understand the platforms. Those are easier. The learning curve is less. But eventually, you want to say, I want to be a best interaction designer or a prototyper or a product designer in XR. Best thing you can do is Unity and learning Unity. And also, I would also recommend stick with one platform because it can drive people into overwhelm or confusion once you try switching multiple platforms. It happened to me. I was learning Unity, Unreal. I didn't know, and it was not a focused learning. So because the platform and the devices, it changes how people interact. For example, the Vision Pro, there's no hand tracker. People use that their hand gestures, and that's a Quest that gives you both hand tracker as well as a hand track. They use your controller as well as a hand tracker. It can be confusing and way too much to figure out the complications, and the learning curve is not that easy at all. I can't sugarcoat it, but it's very still challenging. But it's getting better. What I've seen the progress over the years, it's getting better, and it's going to get better because of big companies pushing for it so much. So understand the pick a platform. I would recommend the Meta's upcoming Quest. Is a good thing to go for because it's affordable price of 499 or something, whereas a Vision Pro can go up to like $3,500. And then you have need the powerful computers to do it and everything. But if you have a high-end Mac, you can run the simulation within the Mac, and what do you say? You can look at the experience of the Vision Pro in your iPad or iMac and everything. So recently, Apple has launched labs. If you don't have a Vision Pro, you can go to their lab. But I think they are into like mostly main countries like London, California, here in Cupertino and everything. But again, that not might be accessible for all, right? You might get early more advantage. You might have to invest a lot, but Oculus Quest is affordable price. You can still go for that one and kind of stick with that and use Unity to experiment and explore. And understanding the platform is very essential. The thing is, I recommend people to learn a little bit of development tools also along with design, because it's just hard to create interactions and experience like this through just a 2D screen, right? And you are losing out on all the fun if you are not learning all these tools, because you can create such magical experiences while these tools and everything. Just look at that hand track and that movement, and that's creating that sparkles. Maybe you could create like a story, an experience where a magic is coming from your hand and everything. So this is a very exciting opportunity to experiment and explore, and be early adapters too. Again, the market is not as adaptive for this compared to like apps and web and everything, but it will get there, and it's something that you want to look into. It's worth looking into. So I don't want people to miss out on able to create fun experiences like this. So learning prototyping tools to start with is great. and then eventually learning Unity or any game engine you are preferring is a good. I feel like probably 5 years, 10 years down the line, there would be a easier tools with like super simple tools and stuff. But right now, Unity is still industry standard and is something that you can look into. Along with those game engine and UI design skills, you can also learn 3D modeling. Again, there's so much to learn here, but 3D modeling is very complicated too. But you can start simple. There's something called Spline tool, and there's Blender. These are both free tools. Spline is even available on your web. You don't even need computer. And Blender is a free tool too. There are industry tools like Maya and everything, but as designers, you can just stick. You are not a 3D artist or anything, but you want to create a prototype. Let me create. Let me show like Spline. You might have heard of it already. If not, this is a 3D modeling tool, so you can create like 3D models for your and export that and into your what do you say um, experience or prototyping tool or a Unity and everything. So you can create 3D models like this, which is like super helpful. And there is a lot of tutorials here, so here we can see community examples. So these are some examples people have created. So this is a great place to start for creating 3D models. They also have tutorials and everything. And then Blender. Blender is another free tool you can use for creating 3D models. So there are the thing is like as designers, we focus on the experience and the visual and the research and everything, right? So there are certain principles. If somebody is hiring you as a designer for virtual reality or the XR product, they're expecting you to bring those best usability practices, heuristic principles and everything while designing. And there are like, you need to consider the UI concept, like the typography, how, when it's like farther from the users, is it readable? How can you make it more accessible for the users? Everything that you are familiar designing UI for your apps can be translated. There will be changes because that's another medium. There will be changes, but those considerations like spacing, typography, hierarchy of information, they all stay still relevant. Design principles are timeless and universal. So keep, if you are aware of this, uh, keep improving on those. But if you're just starting out, just because AR, VR is a hype, don't miss out on building your foundations also. So here you can see there are certain best practices in usability also. So you can see the UI, right? It's adapting where the user is moving. So whenever the user turns around, it's positioning itself, it's to the user. So it's readable. If that interfaces were not moving like that, that information wouldn't be accessible for the users. So there are certain principles like that you need to keep in mind. Is the readability or the accessibility of the information, is the typography good enough to read? Is it too small? Is it too big? Is the contrast ratio right? So what do you think for designing UI in a app? You have to keep that same principle mind designing for the XR product. But now there's another dimension of depth to it, right? In our phones, our UI don't move as we move. But here it's you got to keep that in mind as you kind of design the experience. And also Apple did really try really hard to keep their existing interactions in UI into the virtual also, so that so that people who are coming into this digital world, they don't feel it's completely new. Oh, I am aware of how the model works. That's how it pops up. I mean, you can say that if I snap a finger, a model might pop up. But are that some users familiar with, like clicking a finger and a model popping out? It is possible to do that in VR using the sound triggers and everything. But it's essential that you kind of match that reality and the digital app people are used to. And Apple did that in their products also. So that modal interaction and things like that. So, and also there's another concept of materials. There's something that we didn't consider while designing UI for web or the mobile. It's not essential also, maybe to a certain extent it is. But there you can see this is a glass morphic UI, and then there is a certain density to it. It's not randomly made because as our room lighting changes, it adapts to that. So it makes the text, the typography readable for the users. So if you just make a transparent UI, the users who won't be able to read it. That's a basic accessibility principle, right? So you still have to consider those. Think of the materials also. Again, you might not have the resources. I mean, including me or anyone cannot have the resources to do for Vision Pro. But you can always take these principles, take these assets, take this documentation, and apply that to any of the XR product you are developing for. Apple has so much details there. Everyone mentioned like what pixel space needs to be there between the icons and everything. Because like, even in the phone, right, we always have certain um, real estate or a frame space for the users it to be clickable. And similarly in VR, now it's like you got to be extra careful here, where you need to, what do you say, think of that spacing and making sure that users are not tapping two buttons at the same time. And now they're using like the fingers and everything, sometimes a tracker, sometimes a controller. So you got to think of that even spacing. And this is something that you probably are aware as a UI designer, that similar it can be translated into VR, but think of the concept of depth as well. A hover would look differently in a mobile versus on the VR, where the button might even like come out in the Z axis and everything. So that's a depth concept to keep in mind. So we are in a generation, everything is given to us, all the resources. Apple has recently launched their Figma UI kit for the Vision Pro. So you can take a look at it, how to get started and the components. So if you're designing any UI, you can take from here. Here you can see that like subtle different, like, the shadows, the lights, maybe the light is falling from here. That's why the shadow is here. So the light situation comes into picture also. We don't have to think, in every detail of it. They have already done this to us. So you can take these templates and everything and then kind of design your experiences. Or if you're designing for other products, you can still take inspiration from here. The colors they have given, the color accessibility is very essential, the contrast ratio. Here you can see they're given materials also, glass materials, hover, pinch, selected, disable. So you can always use this. I believe they also have like typography guidelines. So uh, that that text would be legible and readable. So you've got to use this typography scale in your UI. So again, you might be not be designing for Vision Pro, but you can always take these principles and apply to any platform you're designing for. So that's about Apple has launched that. And there's another layer to it now of for interaction designers. One is this eye tracking, right, where the user is looking. So Apple's Vision Pro has this concept of when you are selecting something, um, um, it will track where the user is looking at and how their hand is moving. And that algorithm plans like where the user is going to click. So it's making a prediction. So that it feels very natural to click a button. There's so much goes into behind clicking a button in VR too. And now we have an opportunity to rethink a button. So there's eye movement. You can use eye tracking to determine where the user is looking at, use that to create certain experience. Again, that's the data privacy concerns and everything. But good companies are making sure that data is not sold or what do you say, used ethically, or it's given back to the users and stuff. That's a promise Apple had made in their Vision Pro, that they won't, that data is not even owned by Apple, that you own that own data. There's head movement also. In the phones, our head movement might not be that factor, but in VR, head movement is like a VR headset is here. And some when you are anchoring a digital asset and we are moving the other side, it won't be there, but it will be there where it's anchored, where it's positioned. And head, you can use head tracking to create experiences also. And hand gestures, this is huge, right? Like you can also create interfaces on your hand also. So maybe when I snap, a UI comes up, and then maybe I could create a UI interaction here. It's not necessarily to be a phone or anything. A UI can exist in your palm of your hand, and you can view pictures and everything. So there's so much of fun stuff you can do. And there's another layer too of spatial audio. Sometimes you don't have a tactical feedback. When we touch a phone, we have a tactical feedback, right? But in virtual reality, we are touching in the air. So how do we make users feel they actually did an action? Again, it goes back to that heuristic principle of feedback, right? When a user does an action, you need to give them a feedback. and everything. So how do you, we can't completely make a real world experience in it, and that's not really probably a point of it. And then, so you can use sound to create like feedback. So sound design, if you're interested in sound design, also you can bring those learnings to VR. So that's like a place for everyone. So maybe when you're creating a magical sparkles, you can add sounds to it that creates more immersion. Or if you are doing a zoo experience, you are using like animal sounds to create some kind of a more fun experience. So and then like the warning also, you can give warning through sound, and that, so it's sound design is very much common. And when you're working in Unity, you can attach the sound audio files to those interaction. It's very interesting. If you could learn Unity one day, and that's super exciting, because you can use like spatial sound there, and you can use sound to create an experience or guide the users also, because we in a spatial sound, right? And Apple has integrated in their ad pods and everything. Again, if it's okay, you don't have an Apple product or any that ecosystem, you can still take that learnings and principles and apply. For example, if a sound is coming from here, the user is naturally, it will look here like this, and then you can create like an experience to guide the users to the experience if they're confused, if they're lost, and how can you improve usability to sound design. Those concepts are interesting. So that's about it. And at the last, I wanted to just say that you got to like match between the real world and the, okay, sorry, let me, I meant to write has real world and the virtual world. um Okay, so you can create the match the real world and the virtual reality world. You have to create that similar experience for users to feel natural. But now you also have an opportunity to challenge the reality, break the law of physics, and do fun stuff like now you are in the real world, and now you can use teleportation to go to another universe. You could create like another parallel universe where there are different kind of creatures and everything, and you have an opportunity to challenge the physics here. And as a UX UI designers, you can, now the rules are not much defined. It's a very ambiguous environment. There are documentations and everything, but you can create your own rules and experiences, and then you can be the forefront of it. So always challenge the reality. Now you have the tools for it. That's the concluding slide for it. Before we end, I'll just quickly walk you all through the um, some resource I have put together. So one is like I see it's been shared also, but Unity is a tool you can look into. Uh, Recently, Meta launched their documentation for best practice for designing for mixed reality. And so you can look into it also, best practices, constraints you got to keep in mind, and then things like that. So there are like general user experience design guidelines and everything. So you can read through this. I would recommend after the session, probably go read this. Will be super helpful. How the user input works. So the thing is like, yeah, you can be theoretical, but you learn the most when you experiment and build stuff. And there is a documentation and guideline for mixed reality from Microsoft. You can also read from here. Um, I feel like mixed reality is going to be a very popular compared to virtual reality, because in mixed reality, you have the real world and the new Quest that is coming. If you are not bought a Quest yet, don't buy it yet. September, they are launching a new Quest that has both um, mixed reality and the virtual reality and everything. And the hand tracking also has improved drastically. So don't go to buy yet. So when the Quest come, you can check it out. Um, and then there is this playlist by this YouTuber. It's really hard to find good content in this space. If you can create content around it, that's a good opportunity to, but it's definitely time consuming and needs a high level skill. So there is this YouTube tutorials. He has spoken about few hand interactions and basic interactions. Don't worry about a process or everything, right? Like that applies for maybe an app or a web product when you work in a corporate setting and stuff. But this is a place where it's a more of experimentation and exploration. So you can try things, this tutorials out once you have like a PC and Quest or anything, or you can buy other tools, because I recommend Quest because that I have tried a various lot of headset. The problem is, okay, the headset work, but that integration with the Unity and stuff, it's like very hard documentation. So use those mainstream head-mounted displays, and it will be helpful. So that's a tutorial series you can look into, and it's a free on YouTube. And then learn through app. This is Apple's UI kit for Vision Pro. You can check that out and create some kind of an experience. Um, and then these are my experiments. If you want to take a look at it, that's fine. And then this is the Vision Pro, what you say, documentation, which are the tools you can use and things like that. Again, this is a blend of both design and design and coding. It's up to you, your interest, your skill level, and what you want to learn. This is definitely higher learning curve, but we are in a very early stage, I would say. So that this is a good time to kind of start preparing for it slowly. Again, the apps and web are still going to be there. It's not going to go anywhere. But this is another extension to our profession as designers. And this is a Vision Pro design principles. Again, we might not be able to design for this because of the expense and everything, but it's good to learn through these principles. These design principles are timeless. It's independent of how many years or what do you say, what platform, like accessibility principles. Learn from it here, see how it's applied. And okay, so, and I will share this link definitely. So these are the resources I put together. Again, it's very easy to get overwhelmed and confused and everything. And I experienced it too. So I just put together this few that will help you get started. If not anything, yeah, just read the Apple's documentation or the Meta's new documentation. It's more than enough for you to just get a sense of it. But at the end, if you're planning to develop something, decide a platform you want to stick with. But when you're working on an end-to-end process, you've got to understand what is more meaningful for the users and what solves the problem better. So instead of just, oh, just because it's cool, I will do it, you've got to solve a problem. Sometimes it's an experiential product too. You're just trying to create an entertaining experience also. So there's no best practices. It's up to your strategy. So look into those documentation and that should help you. And then, yeah, these are some of my social links if you want to connect with me. And yeah, like I said that you can, match the real world and the virtual reality experience, but always challenge the reality. So yeah, that's all I have for today. And we'll keep it 30 minutes for question and answers. And I'm glad I was able to do this, and you're like able to see some of the experiment, and hope you'll learn something new this weekend. Thank you.
Uh, Thanks a lot, John. I
I can't hear
think,
your audio.
can you hear me now?
Yeah. Maybe no, it's my fault. One sec.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you speak?
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Okay.
Great, great. So I think thanks a lot. It was pretty insightful. I also have never read or gone through like so much of depth about how the things are gonna work in the XR and how we are gonna create it as
Mhm.
designers all together. But you continuously kept on mentioning that it is overwhelming, right? If someone
Yeah.
is who is who is not used to it,
Yeah.
like for example, if I say I'm a UX designer or I'm a UI designer, and now my next project is that I want to start designing for spatial UI, right? So
Mm,
what is that first step like I should do? Because I think that's
mm.
no one is gonna talk about. Like, how should I proceed to that step?
Yeah, I mean, at this stage, right, of like how the market is growing in terms of the skill adding stuff, or if you're working on a project, uh, I think like get one any VR headset or a AR, any device or everything, and experiment and explore, because once we have understanding of how these things work or the possibilities, we will able to conceptualize it better. And one thing I wanted to emphasize is like, your existing skills of a designer are still very much relevant. So
Hmm.
you can still take this and create an extension of the VR experience and stuff, everything. So like I said, like leverage the skills you have and then
Hmm.
experiment with the existing devices, and then come up with a concept or a idea or a storyboard, and then create a experience through it. The way I approach in my project is uh, focus on the experience first and make like an hypothesis that VR is better, and then look which platform can solve that problem better,
Hmm.
which makes
Hmm.
sense to the use case better, instead of
Right.
thinking I will use this gadget.
Hmm.
But it's still okay because there's no linearity in the process, right? So that's how I
Correct.
approach focus on the experience. It makes it so
Hmm.
much easier because let's say VR might not solve all the problem where the mixed reality can be so helpful
Hmm.
in that use case. So yeah, I think playing around with the existing VR tools and gadgets are super helpful because we are used to, somebody tells us to design an app, we can sketch out and design because we are familiar using apps, right? But we are not familiar
Right.
using VR. So you have to
Correct.
build that familiarity first, and
Hmm.
then approach it as a place of experimentation. Like I wouldn't even think there's a method or anything. Just try
Hmm.
things out, experiment, and break things, and then you will learn it that way. But I think just to summarize, pick a gadget and try it out, and then see, let your imagination, play a role. Yeah.
Great. I think we have some questions in the chat. Uh, One from Dayan. Sir, moreover, we have high-end PC config along with all the gadgets to experience or build career in this field.
He's asking, he needs to have all the
Yeah.
gadgets to. Okay. Yeah. So the barrier of entry in this space is high, and there's no, what do you say, a good solution for it now. Like,
Hmm.
let's say, even I was thinking maybe I create like a course or a cohort for this one, but then not everyone has a headset, right? And there are probably
Right.
10% of the market who would have it. So the adaptation is very less. And even the job
Hmm.
market is not that as fancy, has the, what do you say, web on the app, what we are currently focused or SaaS products we are focusing on.
Hmm.
So this needs to approach from the place of love rather than if I find a job or not. But you, because for next 2 years, you most likely not find something. But
Right.
there's another side to the coin is since not many people have access to this, the entrance is high, the competition is less. Suppose if
Hmm.
you make a VR or AR product, and if Meta's reality, I don't know if India there's a Meta's office, right? I'm not sure. But
It is. It is. We have it.
yeah,
It is.
so if your project get popular on social media, you might even get a
Hmm.
job there, right? So the competition is less. But because of the high barrier to entry, the competition is less. Like even $400, $500 headset is still expensive for someone, and it's a luxury
Correct.
rather than nice to have. And not everyone has it. But in the US, it's getting popular as a gift item. Oculus is getting, like, for Christmas, people are gifting. So there's some adaptation, and people are using for exercises and stuff. So the
Hmm.
adaptation is low. I would suggest, kind of gave up on this a few years back after my thesis, because even I was trying to get a job in this space, and there's hardly, like, very less company. I did interview with Meta but got rejected because they need like more experience and everything. So then I eventually just ended up on my app and web space and SaaS product space. So the job is very hard, but you have a early mover advantage, and also
Hmm.
like slowly build it now. 2-3 years down the line, when it becomes a mainstream platform,
Hmm.
then probably you'll be the expert at it. So that's how I see it. That's why, like, job wise, if you're just trying to get a job, this might not be the thing. If you just want to have fun and build things, and if
Right.
you, but and there's a chances of getting a company acquired is very high if you build a product and you solve a problem and there's an adaptation. The it
Mm.
being acquired by big companies is very high. One of my mentor's husband, they are into like virtual training. Um, for like workouts and everything, and they got acquired by Meta, and that gave them a huge financial turnaround. So there are possibilities like that, and it's very hard in healthcare, right? They're so redundant to a change. The curriculum, I was trying to add VR to their curriculum, and their existing curriculum didn't change from past 30 years. To change a one word in healthcare, it's really hard. So the adaptation is very
Right.
hard.
Correct.
But this is like too early, the market has not
Hmm.
adapted to it, but then it's good to prepare, I feel. Yeah.
Right. I think that slowly and gradually, when that trust factor also increases, and more people adapt to it, and uh,
Hmm.
I think we have one Oculus headset in office for past 1 year. It was sitting in the cabinet, and we
Yeah,
took it out like 2 months back
yeah,
when after Vision Pro launched, and
yeah.
we all were like, okay, it's time again to go and
Yeah, yeah.
test the waters out there.
Yeah, the consumer B2C, right? That space might be less adaptive, but there's a huge opportunity in B2B application,
Hmm.
like businesses, enterprise application. Like for example, in an automotive design process, this might be a must-have things for them to visualize things and collaborate with other people. That's where
Hmm.
the Holo Microsoft did a pivot to entirely to enterprise, because that's where most of the financial feasibility is, and also the adaptation there. You are solving a problem and everything. So they some people have to go underground and do the fixing of the dangerous gas systems and stuff, right? Here they're using like this virtual mentor to kind of guide
Hmm.
them through the process, and now they can see where they need to move things and everything. So they are going into completely enterprise, and I think automobile industry and healthcare education is another potential space, but it's really hard because
Hmm.
now doctors are using like the 2D sheets to explain sometimes, and there where they can use VR to explain. E-commerce, I think that's gonna like adapt
Hmm.
rapidly
Right.
because
Correct.
like visualization of products in front of you and marketing and entertainment and stuff. So there's some space there, but again, it's not it's a very space where it's not very adapted, and the barrier to entry is high, very high. Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense. Uh, I think we Claudia has something to say that I can understand how cost can be a concern and high barrier to entry. There are ways to practice with mixed reality, such as creating AR filters for social
Mm.
media. It won't allow you to create a whole project, but it's a start. Yeah, great suggestion, I would say.
Yeah,
Uh,
AR filters is good. Um, yeah, it's yeah, that's correctly said. There's nothing more to it. Yeah,
uh, okay, I think Dean just wanted to ask that to get into this field, we have to start from where?
yeah. So yeah, there's just two part to it. It's simple as get good at your design skills, your product design skills, or user experience design skill. Sometimes we want to be designers in XR space. We get too much into the XR, but the designers don't have foundation in design. And you got to build your foundation in design first, and then learn those XR tools. And then it's a similar process of researching, designing the UI, prototyping in VR, but there's another platform difference to it. So build your design skills first of your research skills, because as designers, we don't want to like mindlessly create an experience. We need to be thoughtful about it, because there are in healthcare there are like bad consequences too. For example, if I think I've told this before, not sure, but if you're trying, let's say you make a hypothesis that somebody with on a wheelchair with spinal cord injury can't travel the world. Maybe I create a VR experience so they can look around, right? You could say that. But then what happens in VR when things move, suddenly people tend to move their heads and stuff, which can be
Right.
dangerous to their head. So you got to be very thoughtful. That's where research comes into picture, like testing and everything. If you're creating for healthcare, if you're creating entertainment, you can take more risk and everything, right? So as designers, your research skills are helpful. You build your research skills for step one. Step two is build your visual and UI design skills. Right now, some of the VR experience nowadays are very awful looking
Mm.
visually. It's sometimes a technological limitation, but then eventually it will go to a stage where we don't have to wear bulky headset. The
Right.
computing becomes part of our environment. I'm having 3 4 monitors here. In the future I might have just a desk and I would just have a keyboard, like the Tony Stark experience, and that's where Apple is heading. There are like glasses like Unreal and stuff that let's still are like regular glasses.
Yeah.
So my workstation might be just this. I might tag this, and then so that's like a vision for next 5 10 years. There's still, it's up to how can you stick around that way. That's a good. Okay, coming back to your steps of getting into it. Step one, get your research skills well. Step two, build your visual and UI design skills, and even your design system skills, because you're creating a consistent experience throughout the journey the users go into. Then yeah, build in the user test research, the testing skills also, able to test and validate the concept, and the UX skills like usability principles, heuristic principle, they still get
Mm.
applied to the UI. So build your research, UI, testing, and prototyping skills, the 2D one well, and then after that, slowly experiment, get like yourself a headset, if you can afford it, and then slowly start learning the prototyping XR tools, and that's where you might be able to create something. And after that, probably 2 years down the line, you feel confident in it, and then you can go into stuff like
Mm.
Unity and stuff like that. But learning Unity uh, itself can open up the door for you. So I
Right.
would recommend those are the steps you could start. Learn design, and then learn prototyping, XR prototyping tool, and then learn Unity. In India also, I've seen jobs in this space. One of my
Yeah.
friends shared that in the community, but it's very rare. But there's
Mm.
no much talent also in this. How many XR designers
Right.
do you find? So it's I would recommend at least build your design skills and learn Unity, two things to at least get started with it. Yeah.
Okay. I think we don't have any questions for now, but I had okay.
Mm.
So where I'm actually stuck is after my engineering, uh, is it better to make up masters in design in UI UX or get into some diploma course
Mm.
upon this before living upon like lining upon actual into this career?
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. I can happy to answer that. Yeah. I think even though the space is like super exciting, and this is more of a career guidance. Yeah. I would still recommend to pursue your regular UX UI thing, because that foundation will help you to switch to any of this technological platform. Whichever you go course or university or self-education, build those skills up, and then you can learn on it. So if you're trying to decide between university of a diploma, all comes down to one thing: a budget. A university will cost. I do consulting for higher education. All it comes down to budget. There's nothing wrong going for masters. There's just nothing wrong doing self education or taking courses from ProApp or anything.
Right.
So everybody becomes successful if you put the time to learning into it. There's no magic formula, but it comes to your budget. If you can afford to manage 40 50,000 dollars for masters, you can pursue it. But if you can't, there you can definitely take the diploma courses or regular courses and then practice. to build that skill up. Everybody becomes successful. It doesn't
Hmm.
matter which path you take, only the time changes. But that decision is simple. Ask the budget, and that gives you clarity. Yeah.
Yeah. So my question was, how is the user research different when it comes to exam creating exam? So
Mm,
one of the things you talked about is body storming.
mm.
Right? So like how does it differ when it comes to designing for mobile and web and other applications, and now when
Mm.
it comes to AR or VR?
Yeah. There are two sides to it. One, a researcher would see if it actually solves the problem or it makes sense for the use case or not. Because
Right.
sometimes our engineering mind can be focused too much on the functionality and making of things, and then
Correct.
somebody who's creating is naturally excited. I want to create the VR, but a researcher would be a bit of a devil's advocate there, and they'll help them
Hmm.
to see uh, because right now all the products are very experiment. I haven't found anything that solves a problem so well. So as a researcher, they need to identify the problem, and
Hmm.
then see if we are being biased or not. So I think eliminating the biases is very essential. And second, third role, probably gathering those journey maps, the experience of the real world, and understanding and informing the product team how you can translate that into the virtual experience. For example, a researcher would create body storming and storyboarding, so
Hmm.
that the designers can know what to design. So that
Hmm.
journey map skills. One of my friends, she did her thesis also in this one. So there she extensively created journey maps and storyboard as a researcher, which eventually helps the design process. Yeah, I think those capturing data from the existing experience, seeing if this actually solves a problem or not, and then capturing all the data to inform the product design process is like a researcher would play a major role. And then the testing in this, a researcher is not just looking at the usability of it. They are thinking
Hmm.
a usability through multi dimensions, like sound,
Hmm.
like is the sound appropriate or not. People have like anxieties and stuff, is it impacting them? Head motion, eye
Hmm.
tracking, body motion. Now the researcher has like a lot to look into rather than the hand gestures and stuff. And in big companies and stuff, they look at like data usage, how people use it, and use that
Hmm.
to draw insights to make what do you say, insights to changes for the UI and everything. I would also recommend, if you want to get into this space right now, if you're not getting job or anything, if you can get into a gaming company, that's a good start. And getting into gaming companies like really hard. I think Meta is a good company to work with. Apple is a good company. PlayStation is doing good work. So look into gaming industry. This will be a solid foundation for you to eventually switch in the future. But right now, don't get too hyped about this. Even I kind of hyped you all up also, but build your foundational design skills. And then see, every designer works on multiple projects. In that one project could be one AR, VR project for your portfolio. That's how my portfolio is. The thing is, once you go to like a university, you get a very solid time to work on innovative products like this, where in a company, like to get a buy-in on a change in the button, you need like 5 meetings for it. But university, you can experiment. If you're going through some kind of a boot camp and stuff, that's still a good place. So if you have like a structure to work on a project, I think it's good enough. But even though this is talk about AR, VR, I just don't want you all to get too hyped out, but build your skills and then see if you can get into any gaming company and stuff. And now people are already hiring. So then 2, 3 years down the line, there will be more jobs. So that time you
Hmm.
can't say, oh, how do I be a designer in 3 months and try to learn it, right? That's too late. So build now slowly, and then when the market is ready, you are the industry leader. Yeah.
Right. Um, cool. I think we do not have any further questions, but
Hmm.
it was great having you here, George. And
Yeah.
uh,
Same.
it was a great learning for me as well, I would say, for a
Hmm.
Saturday learning, I would call
Hmm.
it. And thank you so much for doing this with us. Last time you came with such an interesting topic on
Hmm.
Web3, and this time it's on spatial UI. So I think something trends up, and I think you already predicted it 4 years back when you were doing your diploma. Okay, things like this is gonna come up,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you kind of all you're kind of already a step ahead of us. So I would
Mm.
rather say all the best, and the way you share your knowledge, that's remarkable. And thank you so much. We all learned a lot today. It was
Yeah.
great having you here, and it we'll always have a place for you in Proa. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Bye.